Welcome back to Light Talk, where everyday people can share their spiritual journey stories with a safe and supportive community. If you have any stories that you would like to share, please email lighttalk423@gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Well, let's welcome our guest today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dana. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm honored to be on your podcast. And my name is Maura Allard, and I am the owner of Wind, Water, and Wisdom. And you want to know how I got started. So I would say my spiritual journey or my spiritual awakening started probably in earnest in my early 40s. So probably 15 years ago, I bought a tarot deck or oracle card deck, and I started pulling a card daily. And I did this religiously, and not much changed. Probably for 5 years, I just kept doing this one thing. And then one day I realized I knew what card to pick. Like it was no longer, I'm just guessing which one it could be. I energetically was drawn to the card without a doubt, knew that that was the card. And I was like, ooh, this is new. Um, and it piqued my interest a little bit about like this, something is happening. It's not me. There's something coming through me that's directing energy that is showing me quite literally why that card is vibrating or popping out of there. And I can feel that. So I started to be a little more interested in energy. And at the time, I was selling real estate. So I would play with energy in a way. I would try to guess who was going to buy the house, what the house would sell for. If the house was vacant, I would practice clearing energy in homes and just really, and I was pretty good at it. Like I would get these times where I'd be like, that's the buyer. And sure enough, that was the buyer. And I'm like, that's the price. And sure enough. And I was like, and then I start playing with TV. And I tell people who are interested in energy, like do those, watch a game show or watch a cooking show or watch something you like that has a winner and see if you can guess who the winner is. Like energetically tune in if there's like I like watch Beat Bobby Flay and I'm always like who's gonna win like and energetically see where I'm pulled a little more. So I continued just doing that, and then COVID hit. So in 2020 I had just been going along pulling my cards and realizing that I was a little bit more in tune than I was before, but that was it. I was really busy selling real estate, and then the world shut down. And so I thought really like my life was over. I'm like, who's going to buy a house? We can't even go outside. How are we going to show property? And we all know that real estate then just blew up. But I didn't know that at the time. And so for those 2 months, like March and April, I really zoned in on controlling what I could control, which was nothing, which is just my life, my little world. And I would start playing more and more with energy and reading books on it. But then the phone started ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing, and everyone wants to move. And I'm like, this is so bizarre. Like I would be talking to these clients, Dana, and I'd be saying, you just bought the house. Like we just closed last year. Why do you not like it? And there was a trend, and I was seeing it over and over again, is that people, when locked inside their house, spending a lot of time, didn't like, they said they didn't like it. And before they were going in and out, they were going, leaving at 7 o'clock to go to work, coming home at 7 o'clock, going to sleep, do it again, spending very minimal amounts of time in their home. And so I was like, this is interesting. And some of them, yes, some people had to move because they were homeschooling and they were working from home and they needed more space or they needed a different layout. But this wasn't the consensus. The consensus was there was a lot of people who just told me they didn't like their home and had no reason that they could really tell me. It just didn't, I would hear it doesn't feel right. And I was like, so I moved everyone around, but I put it in the back of my head, like, house doesn't feel right, but you loved it like a year ago. And this is before I knew a lot about energy, a lot more that I would learn. So during this, it piqued my interest. Could people be moving because the house energetically didn't suit them, opposed to they just didn't like it? For example, I have green on my walls. Like color affects people's mood. So if you're like living, and a lot of people don't know this. So if you're living in a house where you painted every room bright red, and you can't relax, well, you're never going to relax. That is a fire sign. That is a loud sign. It produces a lot of energy. It's great if you're in sales and marketing, but other than that, is not going to be your Zen room. And the way furniture is positioned and the way there's lots of things with feng shui that I would learn that started to make sense to me about energy, how people place things, how furniture was laid out, and entrances of homes and clutter. So I was like, that's interesting. And I would study feng shui, but not quite then. So then fast forward to 2021, I had a client that was very, very difficult. I really didn't like him at all. And just to back up my story is that the neighbors threw an entire block party when he moved out. So it wasn't just me. Um,
That sounds familiar.
I mean, he was not liked anywhere. He was a very difficult person to be around. First of all, I couldn't sell this house to save my life, and everything in COVID was selling. Everything. It didn't even matter. So the house wasn't selling. My client was horrible, horrible to me, horrible to his family. It was just not, I was just really tense around this listing. So I was walking to show the house and I looked up at, and I didn't like it. I hate when I judge people. I hate that feeling of being very judgy. I know we all, on some level, assess people, but this was a feeling of just really judging, and I didn't like how it was sitting with me. So I was walking down the street to show the house, and I looked up at the sky, and I literally said to whoever wanted to hear me, please remove this judgment. That's all I said. I just, please, I hate how I feel. I need this to go away. Source, spirit, angels, God, whatever, please remove it. I walked into that house. There was no one there. There was no one home. And all I heard in my head was this like voice that was not my own, that was saying, clean me, save me, clean me, save, repeatedly over and over and over. And I'm like, whoa. But in that instant, everything shifted because I no longer realized it was my client I had to help. I had to help the house. The house needed to be saved. And the judgment was immediately gone. And I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, where's the Windex? Like, I got to go clean. The house was filthy. So I started cleaning in a hurry and just really focusing on this house. Like, oh my goodness, this is all about the house. This is about this person. I don't have to worry about this person. I have to save this poor house from this horrible family or horrible owner. The family was fine. It was the owner. And so I would literally sell the house that day. As soon as everything shifted, the people that came in for that showing that I met put an offer in, had not sold. This house had not sold for like 2 months. It would sell that. I would get an offer that day and it would close. And interesting, I was living in Massachusetts at the time. And Massachusetts, you have to read the water meter before our closing takes place. And it's a lot of numbers. It's not like two, it's like a string of 10 numbers. And when I flipped up the water meter to read the water meter before, it was all the same numbers. There's twos all across, just
Oh,
like, yeah,
really?
like 10, like 9 twos or something. It was like, wow, it's its own little way of saying like thank you or whatever. It was just, I mean, to have it all be the same number is like you can't even.
And that's also like a number of partnership. It's yeah, and duality. So the two of them, the family you're putting into this house and the house connected.
Yes. And it was on everything. And so that's what I was like, oh, okay. I'm not meant to do what I'm like. Something's calling bigger. So that was like my spiritual awakening. I always say, like, I was curious. I grew up with a curious mother. My mother had a pendulum and cards my whole life. Um, Although we just thought that was weird. But it was there. So it was like, it was there. She didn't talk about it really. End of life, she did, but it was always there. So I was aware of it. So it was probably something that I had as a child, but it just kept nurturing. I nurtured it along. And so once it started, it really has been since 2021. I've been on this journey of just what is this and what can I do with it? I decided to at least step away from big selling of like I was a production realtor, and I stepped out of that. I took a year off to really figure out what I could do with energy. And I created Wind, Water, and Wisdom. And my tagline was Healer of Homes, because I really felt that homes had a voice. Now I knew homes, so the energy of a home has a voice, or the
Yeah.
spirit of the home had literally can have a voice. And that I came to believe through getting certified in feng shui and then going on to study biogeometry is that homes are energetic extensions of us. So like when you
Hmm.
kind of see a person and their dog sort of matches them, well, houses do this can do the same thing too. And when I was studying holistic feng shui, one of my teacher, she had us energetically draw our not well, hand draw our floor plan because she could energetically feel into it. When you hand draw, it's your energy. And I was really busy, and I was like, "Can't I just?" Because I had an app for real estate. Can't I? No, you have to hand draw it, and you have to put the furniture in and all these things. So I was like, "Okay, okay." So I did it, and handed it in. And then when she was going around on class one night, she's like, Maura, is your furniture all floating in your room, like off walls, or is your furniture against the wall? And I'm like, it's against the wall. And she's like, so your headboard's against the wall, your couch is against the wall. I said, yeah. She said, well, you drew it all floating. And I'm like, huh. She goes, do you feel very grounded? And I'm like, no, I'm not grounded at all. I'm completely like working myself to a bone in real estate. And I have no time for myself. She's like, so your house reflects that. And so I would start to see how, and then I was talking about how I was at a loss for real friendships and everything. I was like, I haven't made any great friends or any deep relationships. And she's like, so your relationship gua, in feng shui, we have guas, is in the right corner of your house. What is that room? And I'm like, oh, that's the worst room in the house. I'm like, that's the room that my son had. And then he moved away to college and it became like the dumping room. And I mean, the light fixture didn't even have a cover, it just was a light bulb. I mean, it was nothing. And she would say, well, what? And I knew I was moving. We were going to leave the state. And she said, what are you willing to do? And I said, I can declutter it a little, I said, and she said, are you willing to go in and light a candle every day in that area of the home, which represents friendships, relationships, and partners, and send love out into the air, the universe? And I said, sure. I started. It didn't take me more than 2 days. And then a friend that I hadn't seen in 10 years, who we were so close, called out of the blue. Like, and she goes, I don't know why I'm calling. Your name popped into my head today. And I'm like, here I am lighting my candles, asking for like, and I was like,
Oh,
the energy that I was putting out in a certain area, out for a friend, connected to her and back. And I started to really see these pulls. And so I would get certified in feng shui. And then I became very interested in reducing EMFs, electromagnetic, frequencies in our fields, in our homes. Um, because I do feel like they can really, for some people, affect them greatly. And so I got studied at biogeometry, but it's all been just keep going and going and going. I mean, like, I don't, at this point, I can just transform things. I can clear energy in homes just by looking at it. I can look into somebody's body and know what chakras are off or where they might be feeling some health concerns. Like I can feel the energy of people very profoundly and of land and of home. So at this point, I'm using it. I am using it in real estate. I am an intuitive realtor in North Carolina. So I only sell with people who are really interested about their home and how they want to live in it. And then I also do all of my wind, water, and wisdom, which is, it's oracle card readings. I do those, but I also really work with people on how they can harmonize and balance their body, their homes, and the land, and to learn more about, like, I always tell people, they'll be like, I feel stuck. And I'm like, well, and if you feel stuck, it's usually two things. It's usually the energy in your body um, is not moving up and down freely, but you can be bogged by emotions or environment. And your home, a lot of people with a lot of clutter are going to feel very stuck. And we live in a consuming society. Amazon is a click away. We
yes.
inherit our family members, past family members' belongings, and we feel guilt, unfortunately, about unloading them. We get our children grow up and move out, and they leave all their things, and we don't think about throwing those away or donating them. We outgrow. I did a video recently on this dress that I brought. I moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina. I got rid of so many clothes, but I brought this dress with me. And I did a video on it one day and I was like, Okay, I haven't worn this dress in 12 years. It doesn't even remotely look good on me anymore. But I have this vision of this beautiful night that I had wearing this dress. And then I realized, like, hello, Maura, the energy is in the memory. The energy is not in the dress. Like and I was like, so I donated it. And that's what I try to get people to do is that like the things that we hold on to, they hold on, if you love it and it makes you happy and it brings you joy and you look at it and you lights up, keep it by all means. But if you're like, this was Aunt May's bookshelf that was, passed down through the family and I don't really like it, you don't even like it, then give it to somebody, a family member if they want it, or donate it to somebody who needs it. And it will be purposed into a good energy for another person to use it and actually light up their life. It's not lighting up your life, then don't keep it because you're keeping old energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you really should just look around your space and just love it. I mean, I walk through my house and there isn't a thing in it I don't love. If I don't love it, it's leaving. My poor husband, but I don't like it. It's going. But he knows that by now. Like it's gone if I don't like it. But that's what I would try to get people to work with is, how do you want to live in your home? How do you want to feel? And understanding that your home, wherever that is, it doesn't matter where you live, it could be a room in your parents' house. You can change that whole dynamic by color, by layout, by the things that you put into it and feel different. I mean, you really can feel uplifted, not stuck. I mean, I had a friend once, she's like, I feel like I can't get a handle on my life. And when I went over to her house, the handle on her door was missing. And I'm like, well, literally, you can't get a handle on your house to get into it. Like, it can be that obvious sometimes. Is that like when we let things go, or we just say we have no time for clutter to get rid of it, that we just feel overwhelmed. And I really work with people to try to start moving that and to get rid of shame with that. Like, oh, even when I was in real estate, you can't come over till it's clean or whatever. And the shame that people carry because their house isn't clean or their house isn't picked up or, you know, it's not a shameful thing. It's that we are busy individuals, a lot of us. Plus, people have anxiety or depression and all sorts of, it's very hard to live in these times. And
Yeah.
so, we need
Yes.
to have grace and kindness with ourselves primarily. Because I always say, when people come to me with feng shui and like, can you feng shui my house so I meet the perfect partner? And I'm like, I can help you, but we have to start with self. So if we don't love ourselves, then we're going to keep manifesting or attracting the same sort of individuals so a lot of times I really find that these individuals were looking for a partner, they don't always love themselves. And like I said, well, you're going to attract such a better partner if you learn self-love. So we actually will start with doing the house with self-love and then we'll switch it over time. And I'll say, okay, make sure, because when people say, what is it for a partner? I'll say, do you have two placemats? Even if you live alone at your table, do you have two chairs? Do you have two nightstands of equal height? Do you have two lights of equal height? Do you have room in your closet for a partner? Room in your medicine cabinet for a partner? And they'll say no usually. Usually it's no. Sometimes maybe, but a lot of the time I hear no. I'm like, okay, let's start with you. Let's start there because there's no room. You actually made it so there is no room to invite anybody into your life. So let's start with making room in your own life. You know what I mean? For love of yourself. And then as you start to feel like, hey, you'll probably automatically start doing those things. You'll automatically start making space. But more often than not, I'll look at someone's like table. I had a couple down here who hired me. They were squabbling all the time. And there was nowhere at the kitchen. The kitchen table was a mound of mail and recycling. And I'm like, where do you sit? Where do you eat? On TV trays in front of the TV, there's no room at the table. And I'm like, okay, let's see if we can make this dining room table a focal point where you sit with me and have meals, where you can actually have a conversation without a distraction of a device. And we did, and we put over the table a picture of them together, like happy and joy at a favorite place. And I'm like, set this with a candle, like make this like about love. And lo and behold, after like having their coffee there for a few days and then having some meals, they're like, oh, this is better. It feels better. I'm like, it feels better. It doesn't have to be profound, but does it feel better when you're sitting around? I always say a round table is best, like a round table where there's no one at the head. Like it's a circular motion here, and you're conversing opposed to watching a television show where you're both looking straight ahead and then you're not interacting. And that's another problem that we see a lot of in society is TVs, tablets, phones, and a lot of people are struggling to connect again.
Yeah, yeah. And I could see that too. I mean, you see that just out on the streets and everything. Just two people could be in a park and they're both on the phone.
Yeah,
And yeah, but I'm guilty with the table like that. My
we all are. We all,
so yeah,
the table is hard. The table is a great place to pile stuff on.
right. And we try hard to try to keep it clean, and it just slowly builds back up, and it's like, oh no, no, we got to get this cleaned up again.
One thing
Yeah,
I tell people is don't bring the mail in. Like when you're walking up from your mailbox or wherever you get your mail, don't bring it in the house. Only bring in the house what needs to be dealt with. So all of the recyclable mail, either have a box by the front door or in the hallway and just throw it in there. And once a week, take it to recycle or trash or whatever, but don't bring it onto the table. Like, because like my husband will bring it all in. And I'm like, okay, my mother is deceased. I don't want her mail. Like you don't have to bring it in here. I don't need it. Like, I don't want the Costco flyer. I mean, I don't. I mean, maybe other people do, but I don't. And he knows that. So I'm like, just bring in like if it's a literal bill or a card. That's the only thing we need to have come in here, or an insurance something. But that's what I try to teach people is like what clutter is accumulating and what is it from? And is it mail? Okay, let's like finding systems to, reduce the clutter because it's hard. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes like for us, we have a counter, which can be our clutter pile. And it's like my husband leaves stuff out there that he wants to see. So he's reminded to look at them,
right.
that's different. And that's like working with something. It's more when it gets buried and then you can't find that manual that you left out on the counter. So you're going to be reminded to like read it. That's when I'm like, no, no, this is getting too much. So, and it's again, it's baby steps. I once read this book. I don't know her name, but she wrote it during COVID. And she was a mom and she was a psychologist. And she was pregnant, and I think it was her third child. Could be wrong. But needless to say, she had a whole system. She was like, this baby's going to be born, and I've got all these people who are going to make meals and step in and do all. And then COVID hit, and no one could come. And so she gave birth, and like she was completely. Her partner had some sort of job that he had to leave, and he was allowed to go back to civilian life, and she had to stay home with three children, and one being a newborn. She wound up in postpartum depression, and she talks about the slide of a mom and like being overwhelmed and feeling energetically really drained, and that it was
Yeah.
so hard to make a meal or clean the house.
Hmm.
She wrote a book. I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was the theory was is it really takes a lot, and we don't give ourselves enough pat on the back. Like if you're dealing with depression or anxiety, just getting out of bed and feeling the temperature change in a room before you even get into taking your clothes off to take a shower, that then you have to look in the mirror maybe, and then adjusting to like water temperature and like the whole act of a shower. When she broke down what it takes to take a shower and then like get your hair dry and clean, it was like, wow, this is a lot. Like, and she's like, and then you've got a baby and mouths to feed and the toys are everywhere. And there's just the amount of energy that takes and that we don't always give ourselves enough grace for that. And that was one of those things that I really, tell people is that, if you put one thing away, you're making progress. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
acknowledging it and being kind because, we are really busy people. And I feel energy is super important. But I also don't feel shame has a place in it, especially when it comes to your house. You should love where you live and get it to a place where you're comfortable. And I also talk a lot to people about containing your energy and leaking your energy. And, right now where we live globally, There's a lot, whether you live in the US or you live in another country, there's a lot going on. Um, one way to contain our energy is not to listen to the noise a lot right now. And really staying or surrounding your reading news instead of watching news, because watching news can be repetitive over and over again. Surrounding yourself with positive people, not on social media, unfollowing or taking a break from people who are negatively impacting yourself, and staying out of those loops, because those are energetic drains. And right now we don't need them because we have a lot of outside noise being energetic drains. And I really, try to talk to people about, we have choices in what we consume
Hmm.
and our energy. If you want to have vital energy and you want to be in a high vibe, which is what I want to be, you want to make smart choices who you surround yourself, what you watch, what you eat, what you do. Everything has a vibration. And the only reason you see me and I see you is the energy is dense, that matter is dense. So everything vibrates. So it all surrounds yourself. If you're going to watch dark things, you're going to vibrate at a lower vibration. If you're going to surround yourself, like when my kids were teenagers, it would be like guilt by association. You could be really good kid and be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like who you
Yes.
surround yourself matters, and you will feel better when you surround yourself, family as well. If you can't be around family, sometimes people have hard families. It's okay to protect your energy. And I always say, you can allot very short amounts of time to talking on the phone or when you're in good headspace to difficult situations. So in this
Right.
day and age, as we keep moving into some more trying times, at least as I see it, as we have war out there, we have, lots of high prices, things are expensive, we have, elections and a lot of heated people and a lot of heat. And I'm like, just choose wisely where you want to give that energy to, and make sure that you're using it to be full and not depleted. Because when you deplete, then you're going to burn out. You're going to
Yes.
be anxious, depressed. You can be burnt out. You can be irritable. You can fall into a pattern of, you can get sick. Eventually you wonder, why did I get COVID? Or why did I get sick? Get the flu in the middle of summer. Are you worn down? Is your energy depleted? Or are you actually conserving it?
That's a great point. Keeping your energy up
Yeah.
does amazing for the body. And like you're saying, the house, even, I mean, that's
Mhm.
something I don't think most people would even think of.
No,
I
your
know
house needs you. It
I
does.
haven't even really fully thought of that. I mean, but you bring up a great point with that.
Yes, and there's easy ways. Like people, like you can bring plants in that raises the energy of your house. You can, be mindful of how much EMFs you have around you. I mean, we all want to sleep with these near us, but they're not, do not, whatever you do not sleep with it next to you. I mean, this is your brain and you're spending 6, 7, 8 hours lying down with something next to your head. You will hear it. I promise you, even if you put it across the room. I don't keep mine in my room. And my mother was terminally ill, and I still heard the phone ring at 2 in the morning, way down the hallway. Like our bodies are in tune. We'll know but if you have to leave it in your room, just leave it not next to your bedside. Leave it, across the room. So you can get it if it rings or notifies you, but you don't have to sleep with it. But a lot of people just don't understand that we're all different. Energy affects us differently. So the EMFs may affect you, but not me. You know what I mean? Like just like a vaccine or any of these other food, whatever. Some people can eat everything. And I used to sell houses, and one woman was 110 and she smoked cigarettes and she had fluff on the table and she was drinking like a fish. I mean, why one and not the other? We don't know. We're
Right.
all our systems are different, but with EMFs, we have energy coming up from the earth. We have ley lines, grid lines, all of these. They've been here since forever. We're all used to working on them,
Right.
walking. But what happens is we aren't used to the phones, the laptops, the computers, the Ring doorbells, the Alexas, the 5 TVs in your house, your microwave. Like we've added so much over the years
Hmm.
that not all immune systems can handle it.
Right.
And reducing them and or transmuting them is usually best.
Yeah. And that's a great spot to close up with. So yeah, that is such awesome information. In fact, I'm going to transfer you or connect you with a friend of mine. I
Okay.
think you would be
Yeah.
great for her podcast. And I think what you have going is going to be amazing.
Well, thank
It's
you.
going to
And
be
I think
amazing.
it's for you.
Yeah. So I'll get you connected with her.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate your time with us. And it was a awe listening to you and all your excellent thoughts and information about your home. That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Happy to discuss with people.
Yeah. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Well, if anybody out there has any stories that you would like to share with us, email lighttalk423@gmail.com and we'll get you on the show. And don't forget that like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And we'll talk to everybody later. See ya. Bye.
Bye.